So another E3 season has come and gone, and other than the wonderful reveal of Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, another underwhelming and seemingly out of touch Ubisoft Forward presentation has come and gone. And the disappointment of Rayman fans across YouTube, Twitter, Reddit, and all other sad and dark corners of the internet, well, it's palpable. And as a passionate, longtime Rayman fan myself, I share in that disappointment. I sincerely do. It's been 8 long years since Rayman's last full-fledged console title, 2013's Rayman Legends, which in my opinion is the greatest pound-for-pound 2D platforming game of all time. On one hand, it's hard to understand why the franchise, the Rayman IP, has entered a near decade-long period of dormancy following Legends, which was critically acclaimed and sold millions of copies across many different platforms. On the other hand, it's not hard to understand why we're in the middle of the worst drought in Rayman history. The driving force behind the franchise for more than 2 decades, Rayman creator Michel Ancel left the company last year in a haze of controversy, and even years before Ancel's departure from Ubisoft, it was becoming abundantly clear that Rayman, this fun, fast, whimsical platforming mascot, the single entity that put Ubisoft on the global video game map back in the mid-90s, no longer played a part in Ubisoft's curious business strategy that prioritizes unimaginative online multiplayer shooters and paint-by-numbers open-world fetch quest fest. And according to a February 2021 investor call, Ubisoft's CFO said in coming years, he expects the company will move further away from single-player AAA releases and more toward mobile and freemium games. So it really doesn't take a lot of contemplative thought to reach the obvious conclusion here, that it's unlikely we'll be seeing a new, full-length, single-player Rayman game on PC and consoles anytime soon. I did a 20-plus minute video essay on this very topic back in early April, if you're interested in this train of thought. I suppose there's always some slim chance that a super secret Rayman project is in development and will see the light of day in the next year or 2 or 3, but I'm not betting on it. And I've seen a lot of Rayman fans online insisting that if we just raise our voices, if we just keep wishing and hoping, that Ubisoft will eventually go, hey, look at these starved Rayman fans, let's give them a new game ASAP. And I do appreciate a lot of the positivity that's still coming out of the Rayman community. And I'd love if that happened, a brand new game as requested by fans. But I don't believe it will, and I'm honestly not trying to be overly pessimistic. I'm just looking at the facts. I'm trying to objectively assess the situation. And that brings me to another angle of this conversation. If we as Rayman fans do love the franchise so dearly, why do we want it in the hands of Ubisoft at this point in time? With the widespread allegations of sexual misconduct and employee abuse within the company over the last year, do we really want this company to be the steward of our beloved Rayman franchise? Not to mention, Yves Guillemot and the other executives at Ubisoft are among the key players responsible for the ubiquity of microtransactions in video games today, for unfairly paywalling game content, for ultimately signing off on clunky, unfinished products that are being deceptively sold to consumers at full price. When I look at Ubisoft today, I don't think of artistry. I don't think of top-notch gameplay. I think of greed and deception, and that's very sad because it didn't always used to be this way. Now, as I've said before, I think Davide Soliani and Ubisoft's Milan studio and some of their partners in Paris, etc., represent just about the only shining light within the company at this point in time. The folks who worked on Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle and who are now working on its sequel, Sparks of Hope, are the exception to the rule. They're the ones putting highly creative titles with excellent gameplay into the world. and Soliani is just about the only person I'd trust within Ubisoft to direct a new Rayman game. But he's clearly busy with Sparks of Hope, which makes you wonder, is there any chance it could receive Rayman DLC in the way Kingdom Battle received Donkey Kong DLC? And as awesome as that would be to see Rayman and Mario come together like that, to imagine all the ways in which characters like Glowbox could be utilized on the tactical battlefield, I just don't know that Rayman at this point in time is relevant enough with mainstream audiences to justify such an experiment, as much as I would love to see it, and as much as I know Soliani appreciates Rayman himself. Conversely, you could argue that Rayman-related Sparks of Hope DLC would be the perfect way in which to reintroduce the Rayman IP to the masses, the perfect way to test those waters before developing a full-fledged game. I'll be talking much more about Sparks of Hope in a future video though. So that leads me to my thesis, the take I've been mulling over for months now, really ever since we learned of Ancel's departure from the company. And that is, Ubisoft should sell the Rayman IP into better hands. Plain and simple. Ubisoft's executives don't appear to be interested in the IP any longer, but we know they are certainly still interested in making money. So sell the IP, have a nice little payday, and allow another publisher and developer to usher this franchise into its next era. Allow a group that isn't corrupted by greed and is still passionate about quality game design, about the potential for the interactive medium itself to take care of our little limbless mascot, who I think just needs a change of scenery, a new home. And on that front, I have a few ideas. If I could wave a magic wand and put the Rayman IP into the hands of another developer, my number one choice would be Austria-based Moon Studios of Ori fame. Moon has a proven track record of marrying truly beautiful game design with excellent platforming gameplay. Imagine if Moon could pick up where Ancel in the Montpellier studio left off with Rayman Legends. Imagine that fast and fluid signature side-scrolling gameplay, but with that darker, much more eerie art direction found in Rayman 2's Glade of Dreams. Ori and the Blind Forest and Ori and the Will of the Wisps are masterworks in and of themselves, but to the curious Rayman fan, they could be seen as auditions for this kind of hypothetical game. Rayman 2 meets Rayman Legends. It could be a proper reboot of the franchise entirely, published by Xbox Game Studios, supported by a nice marketing campaign, name-dropped by Phil Spencer in interviews, and sent to Game Pass on day one. For me personally, this is my ultimate Rayman fantasy right now. This is how I believe the franchise could find its way back into the mainstream, back into the hearts of longtime fans, and into the hearts of a wholly new audience via Game Pass. In an October 2020 interview with Game Reactor, Phil Spencer even conceded that he believes the Xbox brand is currently missing, quote, casual content with a broad appeal. E-rated content, to use an ESRB rating, is not a strength for us. When I think about expanding the creative palette that our teams have, I think that is critically important, end quote. So there you go. Rayman could certainly help fill that void in the Xbox portfolio. I also cited this same Spencer interview in a November 2020 video I did about why Xbox should revive Banjo-Kazooie. I'm just riffing now, but a few other possibilities. What about passing the Rayman IP off to Sumo Digital and Sony Interactive Entertainment if you wanted to take the series back to 3D? I think Sackboy: A Big Adventure is such a fun and charming platformer, such a surprise as a PS5 launch title, and I'm also a big fan of Sumo's 2017 title Snake Pass, which was a polarizing game and I thought got a little too much hate. I feel it was a truly innovative and imaginative platforming experience, and I had a wonderful time 100%ing that game. And look, a great 3D platformer is not easy to design. There's been a wave of nostalgia for 3D platformers over the last 4 or 5 years, but I think if you look back with a clear head over gaming history, there aren't a ton of 3D platformers that truly stand the test of time. It's a tough genre to crack. It's why Super Mario Odyssey is so special in my mind. But all things considered, I wouldn't mind seeing Sumo take a crack at 3D Rayman. That is, if I can't get my Moon Studios wish. And I just mentioned Mario Odyssey, so let's circle back and talk about Nintendo. What about them? Nintendo and Ubisoft have always had this kind of special relationship, so could a deal be worked out there? As much of a Nintendo fan as I've been over the years, I also never hesitate to rail on the company for taking too long to develop new entries in its beloved franchises, for seemingly taking the easy or greedy way out time and time again, for not utilizing its resources as efficiently as possible. But I can certainly imagine a world in which Rayman becomes part of the Nintendo portfolio. It sort of makes sense. You can envision it. I mean, I'd much prefer that reality if the only other option was Ubisoft, but something in my gut tells me that Nintendo buying the Rayman IP is a long shot. A couple other developers and publishers that come to mind. What's Team 17 and Playtonic up to? I adored Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair and have been eagerly awaiting something new from them. Could they be up to this task? Or what about Activision and Toys for Bob? If you watch this channel, you know how much I appreciate Crash 4, that it's one of my all-time favorite platformers. I think Toys for Bob killed it with that game. But we know the studio was recently reassigned to work on Call of Duty, which I personally think is a waste of its employees' talents. And of course, there's issues with Activision Blizzard too. That company is its own can of worms. I could go on and on here, but I'm sure you get the idea. Barring some miracle situation in which Davide Soliani directs a new game, for me, the Ubisoft ship has sailed and I want to see Rayman in better hands. I want to know that the IP is being taken care of by a group that understands its history, understands its fan base, and is passionate about taking the franchise into a new era, one that's defined by great level design, great art direction, and most importantly, great gameplay. The Rayman IP is too valuable, is too important to the history of video gaming to be collecting dust on a shelf, or even to be disrespectfully reduced to a throwaway mobile experience. But I obviously want to hear what you all think. Do you agree that it's time for Ubisoft to sell off the Rayman IP? And if they did, if this ever happens, what's your match made in heaven? What do you think about my Moon Studios Xbox idea? Or is there a publisher or developer I didn't mention here that you think could be a good steward of the Rayman franchise? As always, thanks for watching, everybody. Remember that you can find me over on Twitter at terapop tweets, and if you enjoy my content and want to further support what I do, you can find me over at patreon.com/terapop. So take care, and I'll see you next time.